Hi, my name's Suzanne and I run a charity and a business for stopping domestic violence. And I've also spent my whole life in domestic violence, and I also did work with the government body to get changes made in Australia for domestic violence. So today I'm doing How Does Domestic Violence Affect Children? And this information is from my own research domestic violence course and work I did with the government officials, and it's also downloads from source, and it cannot be copied, used or stolen from me as it's copyrighted. Okay, so there has been much research on how domestic violence affects children, and the studies say that domestic violence and family violence affects children emotionally and cognitive development and social functioning and the ability to navigate intimate relationships. And these children who witness domestic violence have serious social and behavioural problems. It can indicate the abuser hitting or threatening a child while in the mother's arms, seeing the effects of violence the following morning from blood, bruising and damage to their home, hearing loud angry voices once in bed. Children who are exposed to domestic violence, seeing the aftermath, learning what happens to a mother. They can also be used as an abusive parent as part of the abuse. Children are not passive witnesses to these events that happen in their home. Those living in conflict and abuse will actively interpret, predict and assess their roles in causing a fight. They worry about the consequences and engage in measures to protect themselves or other siblings. And I can attest to that because our older sisters used to take us out of the house. We used to go sit at the bus stop so we were safe. Because back when I was a child, police weren't allowed to intervene. A neighbour was actually a policeman and he told us he can't intervene, can't help. So we used to have to sit at the bus stop with our older sisters. And they can also experience violence in the following ways: hitting or threatening a child while in mother's arms, being taken as a hostage to force a mother to return home to them, using a child, number 3, using a child as a physical weapon against the victim. Number 4, forcing the child to watch assaults against the abused person. 5, forcing the child to participate in the abuse of the parent. Number 6, child may be injured when trying to intervene to protect the mother. Number 7, child being physically caught up in the violence between adults. Number 8, child being killed in the process of violence. And there's actually a wheel that I learned in my domestic violence course. There's actually 2 that I've got here. This is the one with the government body that shows the wheel, and it's all about in the middle is abuse of children. And there's also, this is what I learned in my domestic violence course, it's the children's thoughts and feelings during the cycle of violence. So that's the actual wheel that talks about it. And domestic violence in children. Homes where domestic violence occurs, children are also at high risk of suffering psychologically over emotionally abused, whether or not they are physically abused. And witnessing domestic violence or living in a family where there is domestic violence has significant traumatic effects on children. They can also be a direct victim of physical and emotional abuse, as perpetrators of domestic violence often abuse children too. And 68% of children in a phone poll shared that children in violent households were abused. Children who experience domestic violence are psychologically robbed of a stable home to live in. They are often terrified victims, young children, who depend on their parents to protect and care for them. And they are psychologically vulnerable living in these situations. And if they don't feel safe, they cannot trust caregivers to take good care of them, both mentally, emotionally, and physically. And the perception of danger with caregivers is a strong risk factor for them. If their caregiver's mother is not safe, then they are not safe either. This situation can be overwhelming for them, and the younger the child, the higher the chance that they'll have post-traumatic stress disorder. They will also suffer from anxiety, sleep deregulation, temper tantrums, aggression, and impulsivity. Their physical health will also be affected with domestic violence. They can have asthma, eczema, eating disorders, headaches, stomach pains, disturbed sleep, feeding problems, development delays from exposure to domestic violence. And babies will feel scared and unsafe. And when I was pregnant, as soon as my ex came near me or started to speak, my fetus would actually shake because there'd been so much violence that my fetus it wasn't even born, and it was absolutely terrified of my abuser. It would just shake uncontrollably. It was awful because I couldn't escape. I couldn't get out. So, yeah. So I know that for sure. And babies will feel scared and unsafe. They don't understand what is happening to them, and with loud noises, banging, yelling, distracted, tense, unhappy, socially isolated mother, angry, self-centered, inconstant father. They can be physically harmed in incidents or physical mistreatment. Compromised. Nutrition and health. They can also become dissociated, hypervigilant, hyper alert to sounds and signs of violence. Like I for years when I was put in hiding for my safety by the police, and I would have to get up every hour and check every window and every door to make sure I was safe. That's how scared I was. So I understand about that. And children don't understand what is going on around them. They will feel fear, confusion, guilt, anger, frustration, tummy aches, and worry. They worry about their safety or being hurt, and sometimes feeling responsible for what is happening, thinking that it's their fault. They will worry about mummy or daddy being taken away by the police and not able to see them again. They can have nightmares about being harmed. We'll try to stop the violence. Yeah, we used to hide our mum in our cupboard. That was standard. And when Dad came in, we'd say, no, we haven't seen her. But we had her hiding in our cupboard so that she was safe. To stop the violence, and we'll yell at the abuser, often feeling confused of what is really happening for them. They can also feel guilty, like it's their fault that they did something wrong. And behaviours they often have: anxious, whining, nervous behaviour, depression, nightmares, difficulty sleeping, bedwetting, withdrawal behaviour, behaviour problems, truancy, headaches, stomach aches, low self-esteem, insecurity, poor concentration. A child may be hurt when attempting to protect their mother or when struck by a weapon or thrown objects. Infants can be hurt if being held by their mother when the abuser strikes out violently. Is often directed at pregnant women. Yeah, well, I mean, all my abuse was when I was pregnant. The whole lot was when I was pregnant, which was disgusting. 90% of children present in violent homes had witnessed the violence perpetrated against their mother, and that's from the Queensland Domestic Violence Task Force. Even when children do not observe the violence, children are generally aware that it's occurring through the obvious tension, the fear, the distress that they are so alerted to from their parents. They suffer enormous pain from physical and emotional blows inflicted by loved ones upon loved ones. Such children live in a home who are characterised by fear, cruelty and violence. And children's thoughts and feelings during the cycle of violence, well, that's the wheel from the domestic violence group. That's this wheel here. Okay. Effects for children, for infants: fretful sleep, slowness in development. Well, I had so many problems trying to learn at school. I couldn't. My grades were so shocking. I couldn't function. I couldn't think. I couldn't stay in my body. I had terrible trouble at school. Absolutely shocking. Physical neglect: fearful reaction to loud noises and voices. For toddlers: frequent illness, shyness, low self-esteem, hitting, biting, trouble relating to others, bedwetting. For school children: frequent illness, bedwetting, hitting, stealing, lying, nightmares, self-harm. Poor school results: drug or alcohol abuse, anxiety, depression, and few interests. Children witnessing domestic violence does not only mean seeing physical violence between two adults and their family, it also means hearing it but not necessarily seeing it, feeling the tension in the home, living in fear, hiding from it, and verbal put-downs. And children are like a sponge. They take in all that they see and hear, and if it's violence they see, it's violence they learn. And long-term effects of domestic violence on children growing up. They grow up to behave in the same way as their parents. This is especially true for boys. And my son actually held me against the wall and said he was going to do what the father did to me because he had witnessed so much violence. So it's already gone to another generation. Even though I did a lot of work to try to get out of it. Boys can become unkind to women close to them and may also abuse their own children. Depression, anxiety, inability to form stable relationships. Girls may become an adult victim or may become an abuser themselves. And most perpetrators of violence claim to have been abused themselves or to have witnessed abuse in their homes. And domestic violence is often a learnt behaviour. So that's the little blog about children who have been abused. So hopefully that's helpful. And you can push the like button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you.